Hello, Dawn Butler here, inventor of Cake Frame, and doing you a special, unique rose tutorial for Cake Craft World. Now then, what I wanted to show you was just how simple it was to put together something that looks potentially complicated, but really simple to do. And whether you're doing this design or not, what it's great for is how I've used Cake Frame in practice. So let's start with our base board. All of this, by the way, you would be able to achieve if you've got your starter kit, or obviously you can buy all the parts separately. So I've decided that from my baseboard I'm going to use my centre hole. So I've put my blanking caps in every other one, she says. So put your blanking caps in there and then we're ready to ice. Now you could dampen that down with a clear alcohol, a piping gel, an edible glue, or simply cooled boiled water, or you can actually just ice straight onto the board. It will stay. So you just treat it like you normally would. So we've got some Sattina here. I'm just going to take a portion of that. Take my watch off too before it all gets stuck in there. And give it a quick knead. And then we'll roll over. So there we go. So in exactly the same way, I know none of you need to know how to ice a board, you can all do that. But lots of people ask me, is it any different in Cake Frame? So I just want to show you how easy it is. I think people are often worried by the holes in the board and not actually realising that once the blanking caps are on, you can't see those at all. So I know you don't want to actually watch me roll out icing, so we'll just do a little quick job there. Pick that up, and again I've got nothing on here, so nothing moist, nothing keeping it wet, but you'll see that it stays quite happily. Give it a tug, make sure it's all on. Now you could use a cake smoother, or just the palm of your hand is fine, but I'm just making sure that that's stuck down. I'm also trying to rub into the centre too, so that you can start to see a little indentation. I know I can see it from here, whether the camera will pick that up. And then just take either a sharp blade, palette knife, metal cutter, and just trim the edge as you usually would. Now the really great thing is, folks at home, you know if you've got all those stacks of half bits of ribbon that you've bought for other cakes, you've got bits left? Well, this is the same standard height as a normal cake drum board, so all the bits of ribbon that you've still got at home will still fit this. Okay, I've tried not to cost you any more money, so we'll just pop that bit to one side. So we've got our board iced. Okay, we've now got a little section in the centre that we just need to cut away. Now if we were doing a cake that was all the way out here, you'd literally just cut that with a knife. I shall do that too. But you know, if you've got a cake, and I know certainly like the minion behind us, he's barely got anything either side of that. So actually just use a circle cutter. Just take your smallest circle cutter, pop that in there, and then that'll be a nice neat finish that you've got. We're not bothered here, so it doesn't matter, it's all going to be covered. But what is essential is that actually you have freed up the space that the foundation piece is going to take. So the foundation piece that we're slotting together, I've got a small foundation, then I've got a small rod and a medium rod that I've pushed together. And it's that I need to make sure is free of icing, otherwise it's not going to get a great join. So we're actually going to set that to one side now. We could leave that to harden, because we don't need it for just a moment. Now usually on a cake, it's the first thing that you do once you've iced the board is you set everything onto it. We're not going to do that on this occasion. What I'm going to do is, with my short foundation, short rod and medium rod, is place the colour on top, because we're going to put a platform on. And this, if you've watched all my other little videos, allows us to support a platform. Now you'll see it looks like a mint with a hole in it, and we've got a raised centre. That goes uppermost. And then I'm going to place a long rod. And a long rod because I've measured it and designed my cake that way. If you're designing something else, you don't need to be restricted to what I've done. So you can now see the shape that we've got coming together. On top of that, I'm now going to slide my first platform, and it's going to be the 4-inch platform, and that's the shape that we're essentially going to have in our structure. Now, I don't know whether you can see it coming together already, but we're going from a smaller portion and we're going to get larger, and this is our first support. Okay, we're going to look at something else on the top. Now, because it goes right down to a small part, we could use cake. But cutting it down to an angle like that is going to be a real faff. So have a think as a cake decorator, what else could you use? For me, Rice Krispie Treats has to do it. And to make life easier, I'm not putting that in there first. I'm going to do it upside down so that I can actually get hold of it. Now guys, have you used Rice Krispie Treats before? Now I used to have a recipe for this, but I now just do a bit of this and a bit of that. And the way that I do it is this. Put marshmallows into a bowl, just usually a bag of marshmallows, into a large microwavable bowl. Then on top of that, I pour Rice Krispie Treats. When you've poured the Rice Krispie Treats on and a teaspoon of marge, pop it in the microwave. Stay with it because you don't want it to go everywhere. But the marshmallow should engulf the Rice Krispies and then you're ready to stir. Literally stir it until it is all covered and all mixed and then leave it, don't touch it. It will be like chewing gum, it will be disgusting. But when it's ready to go and it's been in the fridge for a little while, it should be, watch this, mouldable, but my fingers are still clean. Okay, so I can now play with the Rice Krispie Treats, but I'm not getting in a horrible state. And then we know that we're ready. So to mould this onto this, don't forget it's upside down. I'm actually just going to take my palette knife. Now this could be melted chocolate, but actually for me it's ganache. I've not got any blanking caps in there because it's just cake touching cake. But you could do if you want to, there's nothing to stop that. You'd also put a small amount on the rod, so that will all stick. And then start moulding your Rice Krispie Treats on. So literally they start to go on like that, okay? And we'll mould and mould and mould. Because I've got a big lump in here. See if we can get a bit off. Okay? Just mould it into a shape. What I want to do is leave this foundation piece free. Really, really important. Because again, if I've got Rice Krispie Treats around there, it's not going to get a really solid join. So I would mould that, pop it in the fridge. I would then with a cake smoother really smooth that down and then also look at, can I put some extra ganache over there and smooth it over, okay? And you get a really good finish. If I just pop that to one side, I'll actually take half these Rice Krispie Treats off. You don't need to see those, but that was the point. I'm then ready to put that onto my board. So, watch how robust with this you can be. We're going to put our foundation piece in. That would have our Rice Krispie Treats at the bottom. And we can just flip that over and put the lock nut in place. It's really essential that you've tied that nice and tight. That's what keeps it all in place, okay? And obviously, you'd have not necessarily rushed this as much as I have, and it would all be pretty. But that would be nicely inset, and we're ready to start some of our cake. Now I've got some cake over here, already cut up. And what I've done on this one is I've cut 3 pieces of sponge. Now the smallest one here is actually my 4-inch round platform as a template. And then I've left the 6-inch template at the bottom. And I've cut down from one to the other. I'll show you a moment with some other bits of sponge that we've got. But that essentially is going to be my shape. I hope you can see at the moment it's upside down because we're working from that to that. And it's very difficult to carve that way. So let's make our lives easier. Take it off and do it upside down. So how do we make a hole in our sponge? This is a question I get asked loads. So let's just take this platform off of here for the moment. Okay, I'm going to place this underneath my cake and level it off. We know that it's the same size, so it should fit nicely. I've then got a hole in the centre where I need my hole in the sponge to be. When I guide that over and place my hand on the top, when you push that down, all you pop out is a small piece of sponge, that's it. And you'll see it in a moment with cake we've not yet done that to. So, and this is looking at the collar system in practice. So you'll see without sponge, you see how loose it is? But then when you put the sponge on top, it then gravity takes over and it becomes nice and level. You would then fill that. Now if you didn't want to get your iced board mucky, I would just actually wrap that in a food wrap. So just put some sort of film over there and it stops it from getting dirty. We're then going to go with the next 2 pieces of sponge. Again, you would fill and then literally slot those down over the top like so. Now we're ready and leveled. You see why I used the small and then the medium. That's now the great height of our cake. So we're ready for our next one. We'd actually pop the little collar onto there, and then the next platform goes in place. Again, that collar is what stops that from going anywhere. And then the next rod on top of that. Now it doesn't need to be much, because actually it's just going into the next cake to support it. You don't need much more than that. And then the 2 cakes that go at the end, I'm actually going to have the plastic underneath me. I like to carve on plastic, it saves so much mess. Okay, so I'm just going to put a 6-inch platform on top, and I've got 2 8-inch sponges. Now what I want to do is leave the bottom alone and only carve the top. So it's the same principle for how I did this. And at an angle, I just want to cut and leave the bottom alone. And we go all the way around. So I've now carved all of my sponge, and you can see that it goes from small at the top to larger at the bottom. So don't forget, we've got our little collar in there and then our next rod, and we can place the platform in place. And she says without the sponge all breaking up, on the next layer can go, which we've popped a little hole in, and then this one as well. So we literally push down. What I want is for the rod that's on the inside not to come through that surface. So treat this as the top tier of a wedding cake. You wouldn't want anything poking through. However, if you were going to put flowers and things on the top surface, then actually you could take it right up to the surface in order that you can use that rod as your posy pick. But for me, that shape is enough, okay? So it would, of course, have our Rice Krispie treats at the bottom, and then we'd look at ganaching and finishing that surface. And in true Here's One I Made Earlier style, let's get rid of these crumbs and bring this shape in. Now hopefully you can tell that this one is still upside down. Let's see if we can see the sections through it. So here are my Rice Krispie treats, and they have been nicely sort of crushed and smoothed down and then ganached over the surface. You should be able to see a white platform just here, and then there's my 3 layers of sponge, then there's another white platform there, and the 2 layers on top of that. Okay, so we can now just pop that over there to one surface, okay? And we'll take this apart, okay, flip it upside down, pop it in there. Now don't get me wrong, this is old kind of dry cake now. This is one of my little demo pieces that goes all over the place. But what's great is that within one take, there's no camera trickery in here. You're going to watch me bolt all that together and flip it over and not worry about whether that is going to stand on its own. Now that was narrow at the bottom and wide at the top. For those of you that have done any novelty cakes, you'll be thinking, oh, I used to worry about the dowels and whether it was level, is it going to get there in one piece? That's how sturdy cake frame is. It takes all the worry out of everything. Now then, what we would do with that is look at finishing that off. She says, just wiping her hands. So I've got some white chocolate ganache here, and I would literally just look at, and you see I can work on this whilst it's on there. Look at how robust that is, that's fine. I would just look at, can I pop a good layer of ganache all over that surface. Now I'm concentrating at the bottom because I want to show you something, and it won't stick without it. So another little bit on there, and again this would have been your nice iced board. If you're lucky like me and got lots of cake frame about, you can do all of this on one board. Then when it's finished, you can transfer it to the nice pretty iced board and haven't had to worry about what mess you've made of something. But I just want to briefly show you the stems on this cake. So they are to look like the stems of our bottom of our roses. They're dead simple to make. So I've got here some green. Knead it so it's nice and soft. give it a roll into a little sausage. Move that to one side, you can see. Just break it off at points, straighten that edge, and all I'm going to do is pinch at one side, pinch at another side. You can see how that can start to look like the thorns. And then with a ganached surface, it needs to be a surface that it's going to stick to. You'd literally pop those on all the way around the bottom until you cover the bottom. The top, once it's nicely coated in ganache, I would literally just ice and cover. Okay, I'll do it very briefly. It wouldn't stay like this, but I just want you to see how easy it is to work on a project when it is on. So again, a quick knead and a quick roll out. And I've not gone all the way down with my sugar paste because you're going to cover the rest of it with rice paper. But once you'd covered it, it's as simple as want to stop the top of the cake from drying out. You see how easy it is to work in on the project? And then literally I would smooth down those sides. Okay, when they're ganached, everything will stick. You can trim accordingly. Okay, so it doesn't take much, but what you want to do is protect this top surface. Now this then simply finished off. This is rice paper. Just rice paper that I've put through an edible printer. You could airbrush it. You could draw on it. You could just get coloured rice paper. You can get all sorts of bits and pieces. And I found that really easy then to pop on with some piping gel. The bottom part here is actually just a chocolate paste that I've put through a simple rope twist mould that I've got. That could be an extruder. It could be another mould. It could actually be real twine. And then I've used posy picks through the top surface, and I've just popped some roses in here. Now I'm not great at flowers, so I've actually used artificial foam roses in here. But if you're good at your sugar work, then it could be flowers for Valentine's Day. It could be something for Mother's Day. Really, really simple. If I pop this to one side, that design that we've done, and you've seen that cone shape, well, actually was really simple. And it could have been so much more than that. We've talked about the bouquets of flowers that it could have been. But I need to say to Sammy Snake Cakes, who made this Taz cake, how amazing is that? Exactly the same structure. So it could be an ice cream sundae. It could be just an ice cream cone. It could be a cone of chips. All sorts of things from that one design. And would you believe that exactly the same parts that were used to make that, if I can lift this up over here, I've got this on one of my 12-inch square boards, but actually exactly the same design was used to make this. So we started with a short foundation, we've gone to a small platform to start our circle, we've then gone larger to a 6-inch platform, finished that off. It has a foundation, a long rod in the top, there look, which is the pumpkin. Now this not only could be a carriage, it could be a football, it could be a pumpkin, and again all of those using a small portion of your starter kit parts. Or of course you could get them individually. Now this was just one tutorial, and a very quick one at that, but hopefully has given you an insight into just how versatile and easy cake frame can be.